All right. Okay, looks like we got some guys in here now. Not sure what happened there, but uh, okay. We have Demetrius in here. I knew I baited enough questions so I knew Demetrius would be here. And returning from vacation, we have Mr. Don Hayes. Sooner or later, I guess Bill will get in here. But gentlemen, how's everything this evening?
Good. How you doing, guys?
I'm good. No complaints.
Don, you just returned from a trip. How was it?
It was good. I just spent some time on the lake. That's always good. We have a kind of weird weather pattern here in Texas. The high was like 84. I'm used to having about 20 degrees hotter than that. So
got a cold spot, huh?
Yeah, we've only broken 100, I think, one day this year, this summer.
So wait, is that a problem? You want it to be 100?
No, I'm just saying that's what I'm used to.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's San Antonio. It's like
in the winter, it's usually maybe 50, 60 degrees. And then this year we got down to like 7.
Nice.
And missed a whole week because of ice. Had like 10 inches of snow and all that. And now it's like we can't even get any sun. It's rainy, and I mean it's nice if you went your yard green, but
no fishing stories about the one that got away.
No, they don't get away. He gets everything. He tags. He gets it.
No, I did a lot of trot line fishing, with getting catfish and stuff like that. No trout, nothing like that. I'm lazy when it comes to fishing. Just bait the hook, put on the trot line, and hope you don't find a water moccasin or alligator on it.
Don said he's not trying to work. He's not trying to work.
When I go fishing, I call it what it is. I just go to drown the worms. I don't, it doesn't. It's just, doesn't matter whether I catch anything or not. It's like, Bill, just coming from court here. Did you go to the NIL hearings or what?
Yeah. So I had a work Zoom call right before this, but yes, I appreciate. I will take it as a compliment. Is what I will do.
It is. It is.
It's funny you should mention NIL. I have a lot of friends who are agents, and a lot of them have been educating educating themselves, right? That's the first thing is you can't educate someone on things you don't know. So all of my friends who are agents have been spending the last few weeks becoming instantaneous semi-experts on exactly what name, image, likeness will mean and what it won't mean, and what things they can advise clients for. I mean, it's sort of it's an interesting situation because the schools are engaging with agents in different ways than they ever did before, but with the same sort of arm's length. Like it's this weird dance right now where you're engaging with agents to ask them about how to help you position your student athletes, but you don't want to create a new relationship that makes it feel like you're steering. And once again, we do a show, I guess, after dark or after whatever. I do some stuff that I probably wouldn't want to say too openly to too many people. But yes, there are schools that have long been known for, how do I put it, having at least a affinity for certain agencies. I'll put it that way. For whatever reason, sometimes it's something very simple, like, Drew Rosenhaus went to Miami for whatever. But in some cases, it's, not quite so cut and dried and obvious. But yes, it is always a pleasure, gentlemen. Glad to be here.
Demetrius, glad, as I said, to see you made it. Hope we didn't burn your ears off too much on the Monday show. That's a different topic altogether. But
fantastic show. It's fantastic show. We crushed any time limit we do on the sports thing. I think we were close to 3 hours, but we went close to 3 hours Monday night, and it was exceptional. That's a great show, Mr. King.
Well, guys, I've heard so much about that game yesterday, and Giannis's terrific block of the game and how it stemmed the tide. So I thought I'd start off the show with a question to you guys. In a championship game, be it basketball or football, what do you think was the greatest defensive play to win a championship? Demetrius, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, you mentioned
LeBron's block of the Clippers, or Malcolm Butler's interception of Russell Wilson at the goal line.
I'm going to go with Malcolm Butler because I think there's an element of that play that occurred Wednesday afternoon in the meeting room, right? There was a degree of him reading their formation and taking at worst a flat out guess, at best a really educated guess that in this formation, this is a route they like to run, which then allowed him to use a degree of athleticism to jump the route, right? So I think it's two pieces to that. LeBron, while incredibly impressive, LeBron's block, and we're talking about the Golden State block against Iguodala, right?
Right.
Okay, so that was largely athleticism. It was incredible athleticism, but I mean, it was a feat of athleticism, and it was a great play. But I think Butler's play literally won the game, literally won the trophy, the title. Once he made that pick, it was over. They were champs. LeBron's play happened. There was still 2 minutes on the clock in a tie game. So while a great play, I can't truly say LeBron's block decided that game. Like I said, after the block, there was still 2 minutes on the clock, and that game was 90-90. It was tied, I think. So that score may be inaccurate, but it was a tie game after the block. So Golden State still had every chance to win that game. When Butler got that interception, that was a wrap. It was over. It was victory formation. Kneel down, get out the cigar, give me my trophy. So I'm gonna lean toward Butler because his play literally sealed the game, and I think there was a degree of he recognized that, he diagnosed that play from film work they had done earlier in the week, and so he took a really, really educated guess to jump that route, and then he executed it athletically. So I'm gonna lean toward Butler.
Don.
I agree. That interception, first of all, it's football. And so
that's it. I think I say it's football. So.
Let's be honest here. But to me, you know, that's one of those plays that's ingrained in my head, my mind. LeBron, not so much. LeBron's done so much great things, but you know, the Super Bowl is the most watched. You know, people had their Super Bowl money. We call it squares. I don't know what y'all call it up north, but
we call them squares up here too. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, it was just one of those. You know, if you're a Seahawks fan, it just killed you. Yeah. But I have to go with Malcolm Butler.
Yeah.
Bill, is it unanimous?
I mean, if those are the only two choices, then yes. Then yes. And
come on, Bill, give us one more. We know you got one in your back pocket.
Either game seven.
I got one. I mean,
I think we all hear the voice of Johnny Most in our heads, right? Havlicek steals the ball. Havlicek steals the ball. I mean, like there's always going to be things that resonate, and Malcolm Butler, you know, once again, is a terrific example because we're talking about a player that was an undrafted free agent from, you know, West Georgia, a Division II school where, you know, he almost by accident comes onto the Patriots radar, fights his way onto the roster as a special teams guy, and then eventually climbs up into, you know, the starting ranks. And ironically, he gotten beaten on that same play in practice a bunch of times. And sort of the unsung hero is the other defensive back who's preventing the receiver who would have scraped Butler off. Right? So McCourty, I think McCourty was the other one there, is the unsung hero because Malcolm Butler doesn't get in position to make that play if McCourty isn't essentially fighting off or fighting through a block for to keep, because it's a pick play.
Yep.
And if he gets picked, no matter what he sees on tape, he's not making that play. So it's a lot had to happen. More things had to happen for that play to be executed. It took teamwork as opposed to just one guy being a freak athlete.
Don, you said you had one. What are you thinking of?
Well, that 2006 Rose Bowl, Lindell White stopped 4th and 3.
That's right.
Vince Young takes over and scores with 19 seconds left. But that 4th and 3, he needed 3 yards. He got 2.5 of it. Got stopped short. Lindell White, and that's mine. I believe there was maybe Aaron Ross or Robert Killebrew on the stop. I have to go back and look, but it was amazing.
That was a big play. I think it was Ross. That was a big play.
Demetrius, did you have another one, Demetrius?
Oh, no. I wanted to hear Don's. I think Bill brings up a good point that I kind of missed out, is that it was a pick play, and it did take McCourty essentially setting a screen in a football game, setting a screen so his man couldn't get picked. So it was almost like a fancy pick and roll on the football field. But they executed it. There was a degree of teamwork. But I still go with Butler.
Yeah. And if we're allowed to insert a little bit of baseball, Juan Swoboda, right, in the 69 World Series,
Yep.
Jim Edmonds, 2004 LCS, and of course the king, the one at the top of the top is 54 World Series,
Yep.
and I think it was 54 or 51.
The basket catching.
That Mays made that ludicrous catch.
Yeah, I think it was 51 actually.
I think it's 51 World Series, where Mays makes that ludicrous catch at the 457. They don't make ballparks like that anymore. Mark, like he would have been 3 rows into the stands in any modern ballpark.
Exactly.
So when people say is the ball juice, they say no, the ballparks are juiced. I mean, if you hit a ball 418 feet nowadays, it's usually a home run. In the old days, that's a nice little humpback liner that's catch.
Can of corn back then.
It's a deep fly ball.
In the old days, yeah. What was the old Griffin Stadium was 4 something. It was like 420 in the power alleys and damn near 460 to deep center.
Exactly.
He makes ballparks like those. The Polo Grounds was ridiculous. It's just so different.
Yeah, you can almost every ballpark has brought in their fences, so to speak.
Not almost every, all of them.
Comerica Park is still, I think, 420 and straight away. But that's and
that's the standard now, right?
They hate it.
Yeah.
They hate it. But we all know what they said, right? Chicks dig the long ball. So just bring in the fences and you make the game more exciting. That's a whole nother podcast I'd love to do one day. Is what they've done to the game I grew up calling baseball. But
well, we could do one on basketball also. So that's big difference between the bad boy Pistons and what's put out there right now. Right. But anyway, like you say, that's a whole different discussion. Guys, a little seriousness here though. If you've looked at the headlines in the last 2 weeks, you could probably go back to a lot of last year, some rookies. This week, we have Richard Sherman. We've been talking about, mental health, possible, I don't know what you want to call them, officers, officials, or whatever, riding with the police in instances such as his. We've seen a similar incident where it went totally sideways and the motorist was killed. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, we talk about the different drugs involved in sports, but and everyone knows about the dangers of alcoholism. Now, these are grown men. Alcohol is legal. I understand that, but is there some type of way that we can police alcohol? And I realize these are grown men, but yet and still, I mean, okay, you have a certain obligation to the team. You signed a contract. Number one, you have a certain obligation to your family and possibly some of the people that have put you in this position. Why does it seem that the NFL and most sports seem to catch this problem too late? Don, you want to start with that?
Well, yeah, sure, why not? The thing is, let's just be honest. Guys are going to drink. Guys are going to smoke weed. Guys are going to go to strip clubs and consort with prostitutes. Guys are going to chill their wives. They're going to beat their it's just everything in society, it happens. And it's not just athletes. It's everywhere, okay? But when you're in NFL, that spotlight's on you, and it's like being in education. If I go out and get drunk and get pulled over DWI, my name's in the paper next day. That's just the way it is. If you're the custodian at my school, it's not going to happen. If you're a teacher, it's going to happen. And it's not just NFL; it's NBA, it's Major League Baseball. A lot of crazy shit happens in soccer in Europe. You just don't hear about it. The soccer players, that's crazy. But
they've had some scandals.
Oh yeah, yeah. And guess what? They also cuss. They use bad language. I don't know if y'all knew that, but
I heard.
But yeah, so unless you're a graduate of BYU, you'll probably have some kind of record. But I don't know if you can really legislate or try to regulate their behavior. I mean, like I said, grown-ass men are going to do what grown-ass men want to do. I mean, now for all the guys who are doing that, there's 10 who aren't doing stuff. There's, there are actually guys in the NFL who are happily married and stay away from drugs and all that. But I think with the NFL, you have a lot of guys coming in, and not just about NFL. I'm talking about every sport. You have guys who are making money that they haven't never made, and that money kind of acts as like an invisibility cloak. I can get by with this. I have money. You have this sense of power. I'm got girls to themselves at me. I got agents friends knock on my door. I'm powerful. I think that has a lot to do with your psyche. Any character flaw that you have also becomes magnified by the fact that you're now making lots of money and you are popular with your friends, and it's a perfect storm combination of things that could go wrong.
Don, is it a prerequisite that if you play for Dallas, you must have at least one DUI? I'm sorry.
Surprisingly, New Orleans doesn't have a lot of issues. And if I lived in New Orleans at that age, hell, I'd be drunk every day. By the way, I no longer partake in alcohol, but my life between like 15 and 25, I was pretty wild. So
come on, give us one of those good Texas stories. Come on, Don.
Plead the fifth. But if you play in a franchise like in New Orleans or Las Vegas, I mean,
right.
Too much temptation.
Yep.
Bill, we look at all these transgressions. Like I said, I was just kidding about Dallas, but Ray Rice must be, like saying, "What the?"
Well, here's talking about the symptom and not the problem. The real problem is that there is still a lot of stigmatization of discussing, dealing with, and being proactive about mental health. And so the issue that he was having wasn't that he'd had too much to drink, though he obviously had too much to drink. It's that something put him in a place where he decided to have too much to drink, right? I mean, this is clearly not someone who, went to a barbecue and had a couple of drinks too many or whatever. This is somebody who was in a very dark place and decided, instead of putting the brakes on this dark place they were sliding into, to floor it, right? To shift into fourth gear, put the pedal to the metal for whatever reason. And we're talking about one of the most thoughtful and intelligent men in the game. So it shows you that, one, that no one is immune. And it shows you that, two, unless and until we are thinking of and treating mental health and mental health crises the same way we talk about and think about blowing out your ACL or recovering from, a torn Achilles tendon or, tearing a bicep muscle, where we accept that it's something that happens and that you should get help for it because you want to get better. As opposed to, still, like I said, there's still a lot of stigma surrounding these things and jokes and all the other stuff that people still do around these things. So, I understand what you said about alcohol, but even literally alcohol is, simply the thing that he used to accelerate the process of what he was already going through. So if he'd grabbed something different, if he'd grabbed methamphetamine, if he'd grabbed cocaine, if he'd grabbed MDMA, fentanyl, whatever, right? That still wouldn't have been the problem. That would have been something that maybe it would have been an accelerant, but the problem was something clearly already there and more deep than what substance he used.
Demetrius, it's funny, that, a lot of times we put things on the player, but sometimes it can be, a family matter. I mean, we're talking about Richard Sherman going over to his father-in-law's house. All the details haven't been, discovered yet. But here's a guy, Dwayne Haskins. His wife goes in his mouth. I mean, it's not always the player. Sometimes it's the people around the player. Your thoughts?
Sure. So this is one of those. The guys covered everything. So the guys covered this well. I'm gonna repeat a bunch of their stuff, but kudos to them. Don's assertion that grown-ass men are gonna do what grown-ass men do is undisputed, as your shirt says. You can't deny that. That's what's gonna happen. There is an element of, at that level, with fame and money, you develop a degree of, I think Don used the term invisibility cloak. And it is sort of that. It is a lot more that, for most people, they don't change when they get rich and famous. Everybody around them changes, right? Then that transitions over to what Bill's talking about, which is we should talk about health issues, right? We should take the word mental out of it. It's a health issue. It's no different. If I break my leg, I'm not going to sit in my room and go, I can tough this out. I'm embarrassed. I don't want people to know I broke my leg. No, I'm going to go get it set and I'm going to get a cast and I will have people sign my freaking cast because there's no stigma with breaking your leg. In fact, you'll probably be tough guy, broke his leg and didn't cry, whatever. Depression and things like that are legitimate. People have life issues. People have issues. I will sit here and tell you, I am one of those people. I've had health issues of all kind, including issues that people would call mental health. And guess what? Most people I know, if you get them in a moment of brutal honesty and radical transparency, will tell you that. The problem is society doesn't allow regular dudes like me, who nobody knows. If you are, to Don's earlier point, famous, then life just happens. Some people choose to medicate, self-medicate, or just deal with these issues as Bill talked about in an unhealthy manner. And drugs and alcohol is just one of those. Whatever is going on with Richard Sherman, at the end of the day, as human beings, we should just pray for him and hope things get better, right? Hope someone in his circle cares enough, right? And that's what I am certainly blessed with. at least 10 people, 5, 7, 10 people who, whether I am doing it to myself or I'm in a place, they will recognize it and they will sacrifice to drag me out of that place. Everyone doesn't have that. And sometimes this thing that Don talked about, this is just a societal thing, not an NFL problem. This is a societal problem. And human beings within our society play football professionally. Some of them do. That's all it is. It's a microcosm of society. So it has nothing to do with the league. I think it's actually as simple as human beings dealing with human being stuff, needing people to show them love and compassion and kindness and empathy, and everybody doesn't have it. And then some of those people happen to play professional football or are famous. And Dwayne Haskins, he took that L, right? He took that L. And he's not the only one. I'm sure he's not the only one, but he's famous. So people feel like they want to write about it. It's unfortunate, but I think the guys covered it from every aspect. I mean, I think Bill's point is the one that is profound and needs to be just understood as regular human beings. I'm not talking about legislation or anything like that. If you're just a regular human being and you know someone who's struggling with something, don't judge them, don't ostracize them, don't use certain words, just love them. Love and tolerance. It's relatively simple, but it's probably still going to take us a while to get there.
You see, I think one of the biggest restrictions on recovery is the so-called time limit. After 6 weeks of therapy, you should be able to do this. After 6, I think in AA or NA, they give you these little buttons for so many weeks of sobriety.
Yeah.
I think we should have one of those for anger management. I'd have 40 years by now. But I recognize this is my problem. I'm not going to a bar and
Exactly.
get drunk. I know when somebody pushes my buttons to walk away, but I still need that constant reinforcement.
Sure.
Otherwise, I'm an 80-year-old convict.
Right. But see, what you're talking about is self-awareness, and I'm with you. I don't drink on a consistent basis because I'm not a nice guy then. I know that about me, so I don't do it. It's like Don Hayes in Oklahoma. That's a bad idea. Don't drive Don Hayes in the state of Oklahoma. Bad shit's gonna happen. We know it. Right? So it's like me. I don't. I need my judgment to be sound. I need my peace and my stability. And there are people who don't have the self-awareness that you just talked about. Because I have a drawer full of chips. I'm a Detroit Lions fan. Of course, I need anger management. What are we talking about? Yeah. So, I mean, not to make light of anything, but to a degree, there's some self-awareness there. You know, and Don doesn't go to Oklahoma that often. Only when he has to. He told us only when I have to. He knows that's self-awareness.
All right, guys. Enough of the serious talk here. Let's talk some NFL. And I'm going to give you 4 backs. And this is not necessarily in their order, but I think these are the top 4 backs. You tell me who's number 5. McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Kamara, and Derrick Cook.
Dalvin, you mean? Or did you combine Derrick Henry and...
I think he just combined Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook and made a super back.
I'm taking that right there. There's number 1 if you get those 2 together.
Right?
Let's see. Well, Bill, we know that you're going to take most of Demetrius' answers. So, Demetrius, I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay, so I'm going to say it depends on what team you are, right? It depends on your offensive scheme and what you're trying to do. If you're a team with a strong offensive line, maybe your quarterback has limitations, and you need to control the clock and you have a good defense, you're going to look to Henry and Cook. You're going to look to your traditional workhorse guys, right? Because you want to control the clock. You want to dictate the game at the line of scrimmage. If you're more of a spread team open, you're a guy who once met Sean McVay at a restaurant, so you got a head coaching job, and you want to run that type of system, you want Kamara or McCaffrey, assuming McCaffrey's healthy. So if I have to rank them, I personally still love I'm 52. I love the old school workhorse. I'm going to put Derrick Henry 1 and Dalvin Cook 2, honestly, despite his sort of propensity to be injured. I like Alvin Kamara a lot. Alvin Kamara does everything really, really well. I'm going to switch that. I'm going to go Henry, Kamara 2nd, Cook 3rd, and McCaffrey only because I think the tread on his tires are going low. And maybe I'm under the radar and I'm overrating this guy, but I really like what Joe Mixon has done in the National Football League. I think he has been a productive back on a bad team, and he doesn't get the credit or acknowledgement he deserves. But the ranking is largely dependent on what kind of team you have or what kind of team you're trying to build. I personally like play action. I like being able to control the clock. If I've got a lead with 7 minutes left, Derrick Henry's going to put the nail in your coffin 3 yards at a time. So that's just me, my old school way of like, I think run should dictate pass. So it depends on how you're building your team. But for me, my order is Henry, Kamara, Cook, McCaffrey, and Joe Mixon is my 5.
Don?
I want to throw a name out there, and you're going to like this, James, because you're a Steeler fan. I like Nick Chubb, Cleveland Browns.
That was sneaky.
I have to agree. I think Nick Chubb's top 5 back in the NFL.
Okay, so
He averages like 5 yards a carry or something like that. I mean, it's amazing.
5.6 to be exact.
Yeah, and he's still young. I mean, he's going to get better, I think. So I'd throw Nick Chubb in that category.
So who would be, what would be your ranking top 5?
Well, just I thought we just adding.
And if you put Chubb in there, you can throw him in that, you can throw him in number 1. I just put 4 there. So if Nick Chubb is your guy, how do you rank your top 5?
So I'll go Kamara, McCaffrey. I throw Saquon Barkley in there. I mean,
oh wow, I forgot about
Cook, Henry, and Chubb. That'd be my group.
Okay.
So Don went number 6.
Greedy.
I can't count.
No, it's cool. Bill does it all the time, Don. Bill does it all the time. You can do whatever
I'm not
you
even
want.
drinking.
Do
I
whatever
can't
you want on
count.
the crib.
Okay, Bill.
Tonight's drink is Diet Pepsi, by the way. Diet Pepsi.
Nice. Okay.
So I'm going to try to keep it to 5. But so if that's the challenge, then for me it's Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, the aforementioned Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, and Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
You do know that Jonathan Taylor has been demoted in the fantasy football leagues, right? As one of the 4 backs not to draft.
I disagree with that. Whoever wrote that, I disagree.
I hope that people believe that. So
Right. Yes, let's
oh my
promote
God,
that
I
theory.
hope people do that.
Let's
Oh,
promote
please
that
don't
theory.
draft Jonathan Taylor. Oh, I hope, please tell everyone to stay away from Jonathan Taylor. I hope everyone says that. That would be awesome.
Don't worry, I'm going to bring our football fantasy guy back on too, so we'll talk about that. I was kind of, that caught me by those. What are you saying here? All right, guys, we're going to stick with who's your 5th guy again. Bill, Trent Williams, David
Bakhtiari,
Larry Tunsil, Taron Armstead. Who's your 5th best tackle?
Okay. I'm not so sure Laramie Tunsil's in my top 5.
Nah, I'm glad you said that.
I mean,
I don't
so that's the first thing that jumps out at me. It's like, I don't know about that.
Okay, well, you can edit as you wish.
So, I mean, Mitchell Schwartz might crack that. He's the best right tackle in football. Lane Johnson is a guy that I would probably put in that fight. In fact, I'd probably push Tunsil out and replace him either with Taylor Lewan or that's a good. So for me, it would be all the guys you mentioned, with the exception of Tunsil, Taylor Lewan, and probably Mitchell Schwartz. Schwartz is my top right tackle in football.
Okay. Bill stuck with 5 there. Demetrius, you want to take a crack at it?
Oh, yeah, I'll stick with 5. I agree with him on Laramie Tunsil, totally. Not in my top 5. I would have Bakhtiari slightly ahead of Trent Williams, but it's really like a 1 and 1A. I think those two are good. I like Ronnie Stanley a lot. So that would
Ryan
be my
Stanley's
right.
Ronnie Stanley's. That was why I was hesitating. He just missed for me.
Yeah, I think Ronnie Stanley would be my
somebody
third.
to watch out for. Somebody who's going to be in the top 5 in the next year or two is Tristan Wirfs.
Absolutely, he's close now. Except I really like Garrett Bowles. I like him a lot, and I need one more. The kid in the Saints, Ryan Ramczyk. That's my 5th guy. So I'm gonna go Bakhtiari Williams 1, 2, Ronnie Stanley 3, Garrett Bowles, and Ryan Ramczyk. Those are my 5.
Don?
Oh, decisions. Top five. Well, I would definitely go with Ramczyk. If nothing else, because I can't spell his name.
You pronounce it right though. That's all that matters on the SPORTSKRIB.
True. I don't know. I like
he's looking for
I go
guy.
Ramczyk. I'd go Tunsil, Armstead, and Trent. Let me back up. Put Trent Williams at number 2, Armstead 1, Tunsil, and then Ramczyk.
Okay, so you would keep him in there. That was a Pro Football Digest, by the way, that picked those top 5. Don, who gets the most regular season wins? Dak or Matt? Meaning Matt Stafford, of course.
Watch your words, Mr. Hayes. Watch your words right now.
Well, you gave me the choice of those two. I'm going to go with Stafford because right now there's a lot of questions about Dak. I think Dak's going to recover, but, I mean, I just don't know. You saw the injury. We all did. We don't know what his psyche's going to be when he takes the field. Hopefully we'll know something in the exhibition. But, you're asking me this, in the year of our Lord, 2021, on the 15th day of July, I would have to say Matt Stafford. Ask me a month from now, I might change it. But well, I mean, it's just I think on paper Dallas has a great team, but they'll be likely to win 8 games. I mean, that's just Dallas.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a second part to this, Don. Mr. Goff at the Lions, or the combination of Eagles quarterbacks, meaning Wentz and Hurst, together?
I got to go with Goff because, again, you're throwing the uncertainty in there. The Eagles, I mean, Jalen Hurts could be the NFL Player of the Year, most MVP. We just don't know, but we don't know what he can do. So
we do know that he plays for the Eagles, though.
We do know that.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure.
And we know that he didn't get, breaking, entering, drunk, whatever, in the all season. That's a good thing. But I'll go Goff with Detroit.
Let's go to the voice of reason here. Demetrius, Goff or the combination of Eagles quarterbacks?
So there is no reason here. This is the most biased opinion ever in the history of the sports. So, but it's a okie doke question. You're trying to banana in the tailpipe me. I see what you're doing here. Your question says Goff and Eagles quarterbacks, but the beginning of it says who gets the most wins. So it's kind of a trick question. Goff is better than any quarterback on the Eagles roster, in my opinion. Jalen Hurts has not earned the right to be called better than Jared Goff. Jared Goff went to a Super Bowl 2 years ago. People seem to forget that because they think it was all Sean McVay, although he didn't take a single snap. Somebody had to execute that genius offense. And yeah, am I talking up my guy? Of course. Saying he's better than the Eagles quarterback is not a lot, though. Now, the Eagles may win more games than the Lions. That's more of where the Lions are in their process. Ask me a year from now, I will tell you the Lions will be a better football team. I say they might win nearly the same amount of games. They're both going to be somewhere in the 5, 6, 7 range, in my opinion. They could do a little better. Goff's the best quarterback on the two rosters, in my opinion. I don't even, and he hasn't taken a snap for us yet, and I feel comfortable with that. And I'm not letting the other one go, by the way. Matthew Stafford's better than Dak Prescott, in my opinion. Now, Dak is coming off an injury. That's important to remember. And there's the Lions bias. Matthew Stafford's view nationally is shaded by the fact that he wore that jersey. I know how good he is because I've seen every snap of his career. And I'm telling you, he has arm talent where only a handful of guys in the league match him on arm talent. When he was surrounded with talent, Matthew Stafford's going to have a really good year with the Rams. The Rams are a better team than Dallas, so they're going to win more games. I don't think Dak is 100% Dak. And I think today, as we talk today, Matthew Stafford's a better quarterback. Now, Dak's younger, and again, in a year, maybe Dak's better. So I think you like I said, you tried to okey doke us on both of those, but I see what you're doing, Mr. King. So I'm going Stafford and the Rams, and Goff and the teams will win close to the same number of games.
I have both the Eagles and the Lions down for 5 wins. So
And that might be right. Yeah, I won't argue that.
Bill,
Yes.
what's your thoughts on Dak versus Matt and Stafford? And Detroit versus the Eagles quarterbacks.
So Dak versus
Most regular season wins. Now we're not saying any of these guys are going to make the playoffs, but we're just
So the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Lions, and
Rams. So Dallas versus the Rams. Yeah, Dallas versus
Cowboys versus the Rams.
Cowboys.
Lions versus the Eagles.
Okay, yeah, Rams are going to win more games than the Cowboys, and I think at least one more victory finds its way to the land of the Brown Bomber over what will happen in the land of the cheesesteaks. I think they get one more win.
Whoa!
Awesome.
Okay.
Bill did not fall for the banana in the tailpipe.
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah,
Bill.
fun time now. Let's go. I've been waiting for this.
Bill, the Steelers won just one of the last 6 games last season. What is going to be our record before the bye week this season? We play 6 games. We play 6 games before the bye week.
I'm going to say 3-3. I think this is almost what bothers me. Like, I almost wish they would just be terrible, but they won't. You know what I mean? Like, there's this team almost on like muscle memory, fumes, and mystique will find a way to win more games than it should, which means we'll still be picking around pick 17 or 18, and nobody will get fired that probably should get fired. And, you know, so it's weird to be in this. Once again, I know that I've got a Detroit Lions fan here who's like, doesn't want to hear me whine about my team being too good or whatever. But there is almost an air of frustration when you know your team isn't as good as its record indicates. We admitted, some of us admitted it openly, and some people, you know, did the whistling past the graveyard thing, but we knew our team wasn't that good when it won all those games in a row. And, you know, I mean, we just knew. We knew at some point the wheels were going to come off. I think the wheels sort of come off earlier in the season this year and then sort of get pulled back on by, once again, pride, stubbornness, and mystique, and then eventually fall back off again. So, you know, 8-9, 9-7, you know, they can't go 8-8. You know, we got that out of the way at least. But yeah, I think 3-3 at the break.
I'll agree with you on that, and that's only because of a matter of scheduling. But 8-9 to me is sad to say a successful season with noodle arm, but that's another. We'll talk about that later too. Demetrius, I know there is going to be a date that we're going to circle on the calendar because I think I'm not sure. Are we at Detroit or is it Detroit at Pittsburgh? I think
I
it's
think that,
week. I think it's week 8, isn't it? Or
yeah,
9?
I think it's week 8, and I think it's in Pittsburgh. But I'll have to double check. It doesn't matter where it is. Come on, let's be
No,
serious.
you're right.
It doesn't matter where that game's played.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
As for their bye week record, so it depends on if Aaron Rodgers gets traded to Denver, obviously. So I agree with you guys on 3-3 if Aaron Rodgers is not in Denver. I think you get the Raiders at home week 2 and the Bengals at home week 3. Those are both winnable games. You're not going to win in Buffalo. You're probably not going to win at Green Bay unless Aaron Rodgers doesn't play for the Packers. Then you simply take the home game to Denver, and that's a win. And I mean, at Green Bay, a win, and you lose the game against Denver. And then Seattle's the crapshoot. I don't know. So it's probably 3-3, like you guys said, because I think that you got 2 home games against teams you should beat. And to Bill's point, the Steelers get 8 wins just signing their name at the top of the test kind of thing. And yeah, it does piss me off as a Lions fan because I know they just show up and they're going to get 8 wins. So we're not. But I think the Raiders and Bengals are winnable. I think at Buffalo is tough. And I think Seattle's probably tough week 6. And it's those other 2 games, Denver and Green Bay, at Green Bay, but it's in September or early October. So that weather shouldn't be a factor. And then who's Denver's quarterback? But it's 2-4 or 3-3. 3-3. It's probably, you guys are probably dead on there, and it won't matter. They'll still find 5 more wins and finish 8-9, or 6 more and finish 9-8, whatever it is.
Don?
I kind of agree with what Bill said. I think Pittsburgh probably goes 3-3, but and I might be giving them a little bit more credit than that. Something has to give in Pittsburgh. Either they need to really kick it in high gear, or that it's going to collapse. I think Big Ben is he's like a limp racehorse. You know, he's like this great thoroughbred back in the early days. Now he's barely limping to the finish line. I think a good question to be is, after 6 games, he'll have a better record, Pittsburgh or Dallas. But that
would have been good.
That would have been a great question.
Yeah.
But James, I feel for you, man, because we've been friends for a long time now. But Pittsburgh is you need to take up a hobby.
Wow, that was harsh. I didn't see that coming.
Hey, try fishing. I mean,
try worm drowning. A little more worm drowning.
Hey, I am a little bit of a Pittsburgh fan just because of my nephew's friends who play for him, but I just don't see them being anything great this year. I just don't see it. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Don, I've already said we had the 4th best quarterback in our division, and we probably have the 3rd best defense in our division. So, hey, 8-9. I'm not satisfied, but I think it's realistic. I say that with a heavy heart, of course. But anyway,
you should have your who's it? The lady you used to have on the show, Pittsburgh fan. You should bring her on and talk about that. That's what she thinks.
Yeah, I am going to bring her back. She unfortunately she's a school teacher, fortunately, but so I have to make sure she's kind of like you, Don. It's like, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you said that because this would be a very good time to get her in. So yeah, I will definitely do that. Let's talk a little bit NBA, guys. We've talked about some of the guys that we thought should have jobs. But even though, these are 2 guys that we never mentioned, Darvin Ham in particular, since he's still coaching through the finals as an assistant for the Bucks. Yeah. But he is one of the front runners for the Wizards job. If you had a choice between Wes Unseld Jr. and Darvin Ham, who would be your pick, Bill?
I mean, Wes Unseld Jr., right? Not Wes Unseld, right?
Wes
Unfortunately,
Unseld.
Wes Unseld passed away. So
Yeah,
definitely Junior.
yeah,
Definitely Junior.
yeah.
I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
Because
What-
James
what-
just said Wes Unseld.
Right, right.
Made it a very different question.
That'd been an awesome question.
Right, or an awesome question.
The
Right.
best hire ever.
I did say Wes Unseld Jr. I thought, yeah, at least
Oh,
I
did
read
you?
it.
Okay, I didn't hear. Maybe I just didn't hear you say Junior. I'm going to say Darvin Ham, though I have great respect for both candidates. I think Darvin Ham, has a little. I mean, cachet is probably too strong a word to use to describe Darvin Ham, but there's a little more sizzle on that particular steak. And while that probably shouldn't matter, it does, particularly with younger players. So if you're trying to build or rebuild or whatever term you want to use, you need someone that at least gets a little bit of automatic respect when they walk in. Obviously was a very good player himself, not a star, but a glue guy, right? To use a term that I throw around probably way too much. But, he's worked his way up. I mean, up from, the minor leagues or whatever. Spent a bunch of years with the Lakers, or at least a few years with the Lakers, spent time with the Hawks, and now is, on his way. And he even did some, did clinics overseas. He's a well-respected, well-known coach. And, Mike Budenholzer sings his praises. You hear him talked about a lot. Budenholzer raves about him. So, I believe that, he's and here's the crazy thing. His son, in one of those feel-old moments, is also an assistant coach, Darvin Ham Jr. So we might be seeing, like the Wes Unseld Jr. situation, a Darvin Ham Jr. coaching in the NBA someday.
I kind of agree with everything that Bill is saying there, Demetrius. But if Darvin Ham is that influential, why the hell are the Bucks still jacking up threes? I mean, can't he take the coach aside and say, "Hey, man, put Giannis just down there in the low post," and what's your thoughts there, Demetrius?
His title currently in Milwaukee is assistant coach. See,
Yeah.
that first word matters, right? Budenholzer's title is head coach. So while your thoughts are, nice and they're relatively myopic, because assistant coaches' jobs are to provide information to the head coach. They're not to make decisions. I've heard many people say that. So Darvin Ham was on the 2004 Going to Work Pistons championship team, by the way, and he was well regarded at that time on that team. I think in West Jr., it's obviously a legacy play, right? He spent 6 years there as an assistant, and his dad is Wes Unseld Sr.,
Right.
A Washington Bullets legend, NBA legend? Forget that. I mean, Wes Unseld. So there's a bit of cachet.
NCAA legend while we're at it, Louisville too. Yes,
exactly. There's a bit of cachet to the name, but he also is a legacy. So you don't have to. He's earned an interview. He's earned consideration.
Yes.
Darvin has been spoken very highly of. He played 8 seasons. Like I mentioned, he was on the Pistons championship team, and well thought of then. Darvin's going to get a job. I'm gonna go Bill Carroll and go off script and bring in a third name that you didn't mention. There's a guy you should watch out called David Vanterpool. He is well regarded in the league, X's and O's wise. Been around for a while. His name's hot in coaching circles and has been for a little while. And he is a local guy. He's from Silver Springs. I know someone who's close to him, related to him through marriage, and speak very highly of him as a human being. And he's also a pretty good coach. But he's a Silver Springs, Maryland guy, so he's kind of local. And he will probably get some consideration for that job. If they don't like the other guys, he could get in there. But he'll get a job also, too, because he's well regarded. But if it's just the two, to go back to the question, I'm a Darvin Ham guy. I'm wearing my Piston shirt tonight. So I would Darvin Ham should be Darvin Ham is coaching ability for sure.
Don, what's your thoughts on who should coach the Wizards?
Well, all the names we mentioned, I mean, there's really not a bad decision. with whoever you want to go with. I know that everyone they're talking about has the name in the hat is highly regarded. But I'm kind of like the idea of having Darvin Ham. I mean, I remember when he was playing the Pistons. I remember watching him against the Spurs. So why not? I mean, I think he brings some credibility to the game and a lot of knowledge. You know, when you played, when you're looking at assistant coaches, there's several things you look for, especially those who haven't had head coaching. You know, what were they like as a player? What are they like assistant? And are they coming from a successful program?
Yeah.
And I think Ham has proven all that. So, I mean, you can't go wrong with anyone. But if I were making those decisions, I'd go with him.
Donna, I'm going to ask you about one of your favorite players here, Kawhi Leonard. Knowing that he has just had surgery on partially torn patella tendon, and he's coming up for a big contract this season. If he signs an extension with the Clippers, he could possibly make something like was it $181 million over the next 6 or 7 years, something like that. But starting the 21-22 season, what do you think is going to his impact on the Clippers negotiations as far as him signing, or do you think he's going to be a free agent? And do you think that him winning a title in LA would cement a Hall of Fame legacy for Kawhi Leonard?
Oh, he's Hall of Fame already. That statement's been said already, James. But, I'm going to plead ignorance here because I don't know. I know about ACL tears. I know about meniscus, patella tendon. I don't know how serious of surgery that is. Well, they're all serious if you're under, it's serious. But, but he's still relatively young. He can recover from that, kind of like Durant did from his injury. I think whatever team Kawhi Leonard is on automatically becomes a contender. We saw that with the Spurs. We saw that with Toronto. As long as he's healthy, whatever team he's on will. And I think the Clippers will throw the big money at him because he is worth that. As much as I'm disappointed in Kawhi when he did what he did to San Antonio, I do believe that he is one of the kingmakers in the NBA when he's healthy. So the Clippers would be stupid not to throw the money at him, in my opinion.
Bill, show me the money. Or is it a little more complicated than that?
Well, I mean, I'd have to consult their cap situation to get into the weeds or whatever. But assuming they have the cap space to extend him, you would do so because you want to remain relevant, right? You still have the Lakers, even though you're no longer, I guess, sharing a facility anymore, you're still sharing a town. And if they don't do certain things to remain relevant, it'll be the quote-unquote same old Clippers. Remember the people who say same old Clippers? Remember that famous basketball expression, same old Clippers? That is an expression I think they would like to never hear again. So with that in mind of never hearing same old Clippers again, I think they're going to do whatever is necessary, like I said, to remain relevant, to remain a top franchise. And to remain a top franchise, you need to have top players.
Yep. Demetrius?
I agree, but I'm gonna try and do a devil's advocate thing here. Understanding that Kawhi just built / bought a $17 million house in LA, that's hometown. My guess is he does. So I think he has to opt out. So I think he's under contract, but he has the ability to opt out. Right. So it's really up to Kawhi. If Kawhi opts out and I'm the Clippers, I might do the unthinkable and trust Paul George. Right? Think about how they played after he got injured. And you think about that roster and what they have there, because if you decide, and I'm not saying it's the right decision, I just want to be interesting. We're not going to try and now it might be Kawhi might make this decision and just decide I'm out because he can still live in LA in the offseason. But if you think about the rest of that roster and how those guys played after he got hurt, Marcus Morris, 13 and a half a game, 47% shooting from three. Nick Batum, Patrick Beverly. You've got players that can do things. A young core with like Terrence Mann, who averaged 13 a game and 6 rebounds, shot 45% from the field. And Luke Kennard, the former Piston, even played well, shooting 44 and a half from three. They've got some young players there. You can retain Reggie Jackson if you choose to do that. And then you still have cap space to add someone else if you want. So there's an option B that the Clippers can stay relevant, stay competitive, because if Kawhi decides to opt out and go somewhere else, it absolutely frees up a chunk of cap space that they can use to add to their young core. So they don't fall off the cliff. And all this presumes get Paul George to play the last 4 or 5 games, right? And try and build around Paul George and decide he's not Robin, he's Batman. I'm not saying that's a good idea. In fact, I'm saying that's probably a bad idea. You could choose to do that if you want. But the key is it's not up to the Clippers. It's up to Kawhi. And as far as their free agency, if Kawhi doesn't opt out, they're not a player in free agency at all because they're capped out. They're tapped out between Paul and PG. They're going to lose Reggie Jackson because somebody's going to give that dude money, a former Piston that I feel whatever I feel about him, how he played when he was in Detroit. But he played well for the Clippers. So the thing is that they have options to go another route. It's up to Kawhi. And oh, by the way, he's not going to play most of next season. It was an ACL tear, and it was repaired. He's not going to play. If he plays, he'll play the last 20, 30 games and maybe the playoffs, and he won't be 100 then. You almost have to wipe next season out. It's a 9 to 12 month rehab from a torn ACL. Kawhi's not going to impact any roster next year. So if he decides to opt out, somebody will sign him and pay him for not playing. But there's 25 teams that would probably do it. I don't know that the Clippers have to be at Kawhi's mercy because they have a young core. They have Paul George, Marcus Morris, Batum, Beverly, Mann, Kennard. They have a roster that they could use his money and add a couple of players and still be competitive. And the Lakers are always their concern in terms of winning LA, quote unquote. But that's an unrealistic dream. They'll never be more popular than the Lakers, so forget that. They better be worried about Utah and Phoenix. That's what they should be worried about. So I think there's other options there, but it's up to Kawhi. We'll see what he does.
Demetrius, what about the Celtics trading Kemba Walker? Did they pull the trigger too soon?
So the question for me is not about too soon. I don't think they did. I think they decided, wow, we really like what Al Horford brought. We miss Al Horford. Al Horford is that Bill Carroll glue guy, and he's a big. Al Horford can do a lot of things. So it's more about did they get enough? And I think the answer to your question directly is yes, they did it too soon. If they were to wait until now, Denver would be talking about Jamal Murray and draft picks, and other teams will get involved in the conversation. I think they made the decision that they were going to move Kemba, and a conversation took place, and they said we can get Al back. So I think some of this is about Al Horford, but Denver is talking to OKC now, and Jamal Murray's name's coming up, which is shocking to me. I think the Lakers will be interested, but I don't know how they pull it off from a cap/player. But you're going to hear names like Kyle Kuzma. You can have some really good names associated with Kemba Walker. And I think Boston could have gotten more had they waited. And I think Ranger Hayes agrees with me. They pulled the trigger too soon. So you're going to hear a bunch of offers that OKC is going to get for Kemba. You're going to go, wait, Boston could have gotten that. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Maybe because they had to give up the number one to OKC to take Kemba's contract. Because you're not trading a player. Kemba Walker, by all accounts, is a good guy. And he's a pretty good player. Kemba Walker's problem is his contract, right? In terms of moving him around in this, it's the contract. And in the NBA, you trade contracts. So Boston probably thought, we're not going to find anyone who will take this contract off our hands for anything better. And we can get Al back. I really believe there's a big part of this that was they wanted Al Horford back. Al Horford is good in the room. Al Horford does a lot on the basketball floor. So I think that was a big part of why they made the particular move they made. The answer to your question is yes, because they probably could have gotten more had they waited until now. And OKC is going to get a really good deal for him. So the answer is yes.
Don, what's your thought? Do you think Al Horford was the real piece that they were seeking? And I mean, Al Horford, well, what's your thoughts, Don?
Well, sorry, I was dealing with the dog. We're talking about Kemba Walker.
Yes.
So Kemba Walker still averages close to 20 points a game. I mean, he's still
a good player. Yeah.
I mean, they did trade him to OKC, and that might work out in the long run, but I'm not sure if I would have pulled the trigger on that just quite yet, just because it might have been too quick. But we'll see how it works out. I know that Kemba Walker, like I said, he's had that injury that kind of sidelined him. But from a standpoint, he still makes things happen. Of course, I think he's about 30 years old. I mean, if you look at some of the older players who are still producing, I mean, he still probably has 3 or 4 good years. So I don't know if I would have traded him, but I think OKC is going to end up with a pretty good player. OKC is still OKC, but I mean, at least they can make it competitive, right?
Yeah, it's a play-in. Bill.
So
your thoughts on Kemba Walker?
If they moved Kemba too quickly?
Yes.
Well, and I'm gonna once again. I guess this is now I'm in the position where often Demetrius finds himself. Strategically speaking, the answer is yes. But sometimes a team wants to clarify a certain situation. Now, I usually think you need to maximize value at all times. I'm even a stickler for value, right? So in terms of just pure, are you getting the most out of the opportunity cost? To use a word they like to bandy about in business school. The answer is no. They didn't maximize their chance to or gain the most in terms of opportunity cost. But they may have simply wanted to move on, for lack of a way of putting it, for a variety of organizational reasons. But yeah, in terms of just maximizing the value that the proposition of Kemba Walker presents, they did not maximize it.
Demetrius, you brought up an interesting point, and it was something that I really didn't think of, because I don't really think of Al Horford as that upper tier guy. Now, to use that term that we have, I don't know, maybe I should change the name of the show to the glue guys. But Al Horford is a glue guy.
Yep.
He's not a guy that you build a team around, or a big that you can count on for double figures every night. So are you sticking by your premise that they wanted Al Horford back?
Yeah. I think if you do the research, he's great. He's great in the locker room. But everybody loves Al Horford. And I think he is probably 14-8, 14-7 every night. And if you've got a guy who's good in the room, he's a decent passer, and he's going to bring you 13, 14 points a night and 7-8 rebounds.
Maybe a block.
Maybe a block. And he does. And Bill mentioned a great point that I missed. I think he used the term deal clarification, organizational clarification. They needed a big more than they needed a wing. They've got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They just didn't need the player that Kemba Walker was. the size and the skill set he brings, they didn't need it. They've got it in two other guys that are bigger than Kemba Walker. So you can go get a big that facilitates, that's good in the room, that does the dirty work, and everybody likes him because you know him because he was there. So you're familiar with him. So there's a low risk getting Al back, and you get to unload Kemba's contract. So it gives you cap flexibility. That's why they jumped on it so quickly. To Bill's point, I don't even know if they cared about maximizing Kemba as an asset. I think they needed to unload that contract. They needed to unload a wing player, not called Tatum or Brown. And you get back a guy you know and who's good in your locker room. So I don't even think it was a bad move. The question was too soon. If you're trying to do what Bill's talking about, which is maximize the value, answer is yes, too soon. I think it's probably a good move. I think Boston did the right thing. I think they got rid of that contract. They got a guy back that they know, and they did what Bill said about clarification. Tatum and Brown are our wings. They're going to get the minutes at wing. We don't need anybody else taking the ball out of the hands of those two players. I think they solved all that with the trade.
Demetrius, we were talking about, the lottery pick that your Pistons won.
Mm-hmm.
And, we always talk about, some of the questions that, teams might ask prospects when they come in for the interviews. And we found out that one of the questions that the Pistons organizations ask of their prospects is, do they make their bed in the morning? There was a very specific reason why.
Sure.
And the reason why is that a study has been made that most people that make up their beds in the morning tend to be more organized, and they tend to be able to follow tasks and be more disciplined. Yep. So what do you think about that process, Demetrius, and do you describe to that premise?
Are we after dark yet? Yes. Hell no, I don't make up my bed every day. I don't make up my bed most days. No, I don't. Now, that being said, I think I am unique in that when I decide to be laser focused, I can display incredible amounts of organization and discipline. In general, I don't. I'm much more free flowing in my life. You guys see me violate the rules on what's the chances we're going to be under 2 hours now? Right? There you go. That's your make up the bed theory there. I understand what they're doing. They're doing evaluation of players. They're doing their due diligence, as Bill probably said to somebody a couple hours ago, wearing that sweet tie that I'm going to get someday somehow. They did their due diligence, and you have to assess. You got the number one pick. You can't miss on this. You got to turn over whatever you're supposed to turn over, every rock. Yeah, turn over every rock, crawl into every crevice, and you use this as a single data point amongst 100 data points to assess the guys you're going to draft. Their organization and discipline is a continuum to me. There are people who are on the far end. There are people who I'm somewhere in the middle. When I want to be, I can be. I do not make up my bed every day. And my wife doesn't make up the bed every day. That doesn't make any sense. So, I mean, I'm sorry. It does to some people. It doesn't to us. So I think that it has been shown to be a trait that leaders have. So I understand what they're doing. I understand the process. I know that there are probably people who are great leaders who don't make up their bed every day. I'm certain of it. And I also think that there are people who make up their bed every day and are really good followers. And sometimes they're organized and sometimes they're not. It's a data point. It's a legitimate data point. I respect that they're doing the due diligence more than I care about a single data point question. I get it. But Dwayne Casey believes it. He believes those are traits that mean something within the context of leading a basketball team. And he's probably right. He's really good at what he does. I'm not going to second guess him. So maybe it matters. I'm not making up my bed tomorrow. I know that. maybe next week. I don't know.
Don, would you have passed that as a freshman? Well, even as a senior on the Texas football team.
So my thing is, why make the bed if you're just going to mess it up in about 12 hours anyway?
Thank you, Don.
To me, more a better question would be like, are you a dog person or are you a cat person?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
A dog person or a cat person? If they say cat person, don't sign them.
Right. Right.
Trust cats.
Take them off your draft board.
And then other question is, do you put the toilet paper over or under on the roll? That's the deep shit there.
Yeah, I didn't know that one. I'm curious.
But all that comes from a guy named Admiral McCraven who gave a commencement speech at the University of Texas. He graduated UT. He's actually was our chancellor at UT for the UT system. He's a retired admiral, special ops. He's the one that took out Bin Laden a few years ago. So yeah, Admiral McCraven, he gave that speech, said, it's the little things. Make your bed every morning. And the speech was so good that they made it to a book. And I know a lot of corporations have their executives read that book. I've read it. It's good. It's good stuff. But does it translate to being a NBA basketball player? Not really. I would say, hey, do you brush your teeth? That'd be more.
Right.
What's sad is that you do have to have a conversation with your people sometimes, because I know my students sometimes says, do you brush your teeth? You should. You should floss too. Definitely floss.
Yes.
Bill, being in the military, of course, you learn you have to make up your bed every day,
Yep.
especially whether, if you're an elite unit. But one thing that I found in my Army career and my criminal career is that whether I was in the barracks or I was in the dormitory in prison, I still had to make up my bed. To me, I'm kind of like Demetrius and Don. Some days I do, some days I don't. What do you think, Bill? I mean, usually, as I say, if you're a member of, an organization, yeah, that's usually part of your duties. Not necessarily, it's not necessarily something that you do on your own. It's something that you're obligated to do. So, is this a relevant question, Bill?
Well, is it relevant to understanding this person that you have in front of you, right? You're trying to, in a compressed amount of time, form a snapshot of this human being that you're probably about to invest time and money, right, in this human being. So I get what they're trying to do, what they're trying to find out, what they're trying to accomplish. That all makes perfect sense to me. And if you were trying to put together, a team that you're going to drop, behind enemy lines, you definitely want to know that kind of thing. It doesn't always translate athletically. There have been lots of brilliant, amazing athletes who weren't great at some of the quote-unquote little things. Bernie Kosar, his uniform never looked like it fit him right. He, as my father once said, whenever he tried to run, it was like an inebriated woman whose girdle was slipping. He was a guy that had sort of odd, even interpersonal skills. There was a lot of things that wouldn't make you think that this guy's going to be a top-flight NFL quarterback. And he somehow overcame all of that, right? Floppy socks, all kinds of stuff. He didn't look. He didn't have great quarterback hair. Who is it? The person's always talking about how quarterback's the best looking guy on the team, whatever. Oh, Colin Cowherd, right? Colin Cowherd would not have been a fan of Bernie Kosar as a prospect. Not the most dazzlingly handsome man, but a brilliant football mind and a guy that overcame a lot of things to be, once again, not a Hall of Famer, but a Hall of very good level quarterback. There's a lot of different ways to build a team. There's a lot of different ways to win. There's a lot of different ways to even be good at things, quite frankly. And the linear way, the military way, because the military is fairly linear, right? I mean, I think we'd all agree, those of us who've had the direct experience, those who've just watched, is there's not a whole lot of, hey, well, maybe this, well, maybe that. No, it's this, right? I mean, that's because they don't want you hesitating and thinking. They want you to fall. That's the old saying. There's no such thing as rising to the occasion, gentlemen. You will descend and settle at the level of your training. That's right. That was drilled into me years ago, and I will probably go to my grave remembering that. So they want you to not depend on your own understanding, right? Lean not on your own understanding, right? They don't want you to wonder or waver or vacillate. They want you to have this thing implanted in you that directs you, north, same way that, magnetic north on a compass does. But sports can be creative, right? Steph Curry doesn't play point guard the way that you think point guards should play point guard. He's not a point guard, really. Like it's a lie, right? We're all it's imaginary. He's not a point guard, but it worked to the tune of a couple of championships. So you can build a team in a way that doesn't seem right. There are teams with 6'7", 6'8" guys playing center, which is like, what year is it? 1949 over again? But it works if you have the right guys. So I understand, right? And obviously, I've been following Billy McRaven's career since long before he got to JSOC. He's been a rising star in the military community. Not retired, obviously, but going back 20 plus years, people who paid attention to talent, if you want to think of it that way, in the military community, we're talking about Billy McRaven. He's long been a person that's been on people's lips. But the military community, even the ones who are considered, quote unquote outside the box, you're just in a different box, right? There's no true outside the box thinkers in the military.
Yeah, I do have to kind of agree with that. You just happen to be maybe the box has higher sides.
Your box might be a slightly cooler box. It might be you might have put a racing stripe on it. Whatever.
Yeah. You might be Tom Cruise, right? Top Gun.
The box is definitely having a racing stripe.
It's still a box. But Demetrius Candace Parker finally makes the cover of NBA 2K 2022. Not only that, but if you just look at what she accomplished this year, which was quite a feat in NBA history. But what are your thoughts on Candace Parker and this achievement? Is this overdue for women's basketball, do you think?
Okay, so I'm going to be unpopular, but that's okay. Is this a thing? I feel like I might have missed something. The game's called NBA 2K. This is a video game. It's a video game. That's what we're talking about, right?
That's what we're talking about.
Okay, all right. So I might have missed something. I'm granting right up front. I apologize. I don't know what this is. Is this even an honor? I don't know what this is, right? So look, Candace Parker is phenomenal. We all know that, right? If there was a game called WNBA 2K, this would be. I don't know.
There is a WNBA.
Okay, cool. I think it's cool, but I'm going to be the cynic. This is not something where we're trying to honor women in general or Candace Parker. This was in a marketing meeting. This was in a branding meeting that somebody said we should make a special edition and put a woman on it. I'm not questioning the NBA. Well, no, that's exactly what I'm doing. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm sorry. I don't know. I feel like when I started thinking about this question, I thought, did I miss something? I don't even know if this is an honor to get put on a video game, but if it is, cool. I don't know that it's overdue because I don't know that it's necessary or even a thing. I didn't know there was a thing that women wanted to be on the cover of video games. And it's NBA 2K. I don't think there's anything sexist about this. I honestly have no idea what the blue hell we're talking about right now. I got to be honest with you. It's a video game. It's still a video game, right? I'm not trying to be that guy. I'm going to let Bill and Don explain this to me because this is the first time in the sports career I don't know what the hell we're talking about. I'm going to be honest. That's where I'm at. You guys tell me. I missed the meeting. I missed the episode of the Sports Crib a few months ago. I had to travel. I was on an airplane. Maybe you guys talked about this then and I missed it because I don't know what this is. Interesting, but help me out, guys. You guys tell me what's wrong. What am I doing?
This was the banana in the tailpipe.
Exactly.
See, while you were looking away,
you got me. You got me. I fell for the hooky dough.
Tell them about deception, Bill.
Wink, bamboozle, led astray, run amok, the whole list.
Don, are you on the same party with Demetrius?
So you open a can of worms that you can go drowned now. I'm like Demetrius. When I saw that on your little script, I said, what the hell is NBA 2K, whatever? And I said, who the hell is Candace Parker? So I had to Google. I was like, what the hell? Wow. Why are women, on NBA, they have WNBA, they don't have to I'm not Demetrius. It's a marketing ploy. It's like, but how many young, little feminists are going to be playing video games of basketball? Not many. And the ones who are probably transitioning to men anyway. So, I mean.
I do not co-sign that statement. That's a Don Hayes production. I did not co-sign that statement. I did not. Candace Parker's a phenomenal player.
We have definitely went to crib and after dark.
Okay.
No,
Bill,
so
your thoughts, Bill?
But no, okay. So there's a very small, and y'all know this. A lot of people, United States, do not watch WNBA, and I'm one of them. I usually don't watch. I watch women's sports during the Olympics. That's about it. I don't, unless I have to do sometimes I keep the clock at a basketball, soccer game at high school, but I don't watch women's sports. I don't know if that makes me a bad person. I don't watch women's sports, so I have no idea who. I plead ignorance. I'm sure Candace Parker is a great player. Never heard of her.
The opinion of Don Hayes does not reflect those of the sports player.
Three-time All-American, multi-Olympian.
Candace Parker's phenomenal.
Well, Don, first of all, I will tell you that, I don't quite subscribe to you're not watching women's sports because I watch powder puff football every time the season comes up. But that's a whole nother thing.
We respect Don. Don got a right to his opinion, though. I would say that. He got a right to it.
The lingerie football, I like that lingerie football.
You was my Don Hayes. Do not reflect those of the sports.
I cannot name a lingerie football player. I can't.
I can't either, Don. But I'm with you. When it comes on,
wow.
Hey,
I do know this. And this is like Sports Crib after hours. Bill mentioned Bernie Kosar. His daughter is a porn star named Lexi Silver.
Bill, would you please take over at some point, Bill? What the hell are you waiting for?
I'm going to turn it over to Bill now.
So I had the great pleasure of watching a bunch of tremendous teams at Old Dominion back during the days when Nancy Lieberman, Ann Donovan, Rhonda Rompola, Angela Cotman were all there. Jan Tremblay, who played on the Canadian Olympic team, was on that team as well. So I've been watching women's basketball for years. And Candace Parker is one of the greatest players of all time. She will be a first ballot Hall of Famer when her career is over. She's gotten a lot of really interesting endorsements, in part because, and I guess since we're doing this, she's very tall, but she's also a very physically attractive woman. Yeah. So, if we're going down that pathway. but she is one of the great players of this generation. And, you know, a big but very skilled. She can score with either hand, a tremendous defender. She can rebound. She blocks shots. Her game is complete. I would compare her if you're looking for, I mean, obviously she's not as tall as a guy like Ralph Sampson, but her game is somewhat similar to the kind of game that Ralph Sampson had coming out of University of Virginia. Skilled, long, not really a power player, despite being a bigger player. I mean, she can occasionally just go through people or whatever, but she prefers usually to win with skill. I have no problem with it because representation matters. And despite what Don may have said, there are lots of women who do play video games who are happy being women, believe it or not. A lot of young women who love basketball, who get to see somebody who looks like them or someone they can aspire to be like when they buy the game. And as much as they love Kobe and love, you know, whoever else has been on the covers all these many years, it's just cool. Now, is it a crass money grab also? Well, of course it is. What country are we?
Right.
But if there's going to be a crass money grab, at least it's a cool way to crassly grab money.
That's fair. That was probably the best opinion of the three. I'm glad you let Bill close that one.
Well, hey, there has to be a voice of reason somewhere on the Sports Crib. So, all right, guys, let's talk about the playoffs. Now, I'm going to give you what I consider my top four, I guess. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, my top four NBA Finals moments. Now, you can either rank these or you can give me some that you think are better. So my first one is Iverson's crossover on Ty Lue in 2001. My second one would be Kyrie's clutch 3 in 2016. My third would be Rip Hamilton and the speech that he gave after the Pistons won in 2004. And of course, my last one would be Steve Kerr when he sank the shot against the Jazz in 1990 in the 1997 final. So, since I had the Pistons in here, I'm going to give you a chance to rank first, Mr. Demetrius.
While I like all your options, there's a certain guy whose name I don't say because of my team who pushed Brian Russell off and it didn't get called. But I'm not talking about him. So for me, I'm going to go straight Homer, but not Rip in 04. I'm going back to 1990. I was in the Palace of Auburn Hills watching it on a screen because they were in Portland, game 5, and there's 20 seconds left in the tie game, and I'm watching Zeke just dribble up at the top of the key. And then Vinnie Johnson comes off a very simple ball screen, catches, dips, takes 2 dribbles, and drains the game winner with 0:07 on the clock. We call it in Michigan, in Detroit, the 007 game, because the announcer, tremendous announcer by the name of George Blaha, shout out to George Blaha, called it. Vinny scored 15 points in the fourth quarter of that game. But we know what he was called, the microwave. That's what he did. He had not been a factor throughout the game. He put up 15 in the fourth quarter, hit the game winner like it was nothing. It was about a 12, 15-foot shot from the right elbow, and he knocked it down. Didn't even touch the rim. That's a wrap. Chuck Daly back-to-back. So to me, it's Vinny 007 in the 1990, game 5 of the 1990 finals. And short side note, part fan story, part race relation story, part broken rib story. The guy standing next to me, who I did not know, had never met in my life, big man, 6'6", 400 pounds, had some overalls, had a beard. He was clearly a farmer. happened to be a Caucasian man. Vinny hits that shot. I turn to do what I think is going to be your standard high five that one would give a stranger. This gentleman decided he felt like hugging me. And he lifted me. And at the time, I'm 6'3", 220. He picked me up like a sack of potatoes and gave me the strongest hug. And I don't have a litany of grown man hugs that I can refer to. But this one, I was pretty sure I cracked a rib. But it didn't matter because the adrenaline was flowing because the Pistons had just won their second title. This man hugged me like I was one of his kids. And it was such a weird thing because I was with a friend of mine. And my friend Art says, "Did you know him?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't know him." But that's what makes sports special. At that moment, that guy didn't know me. He didn't care. We had just won. And he was celebrating with somebody, and I happened to be in arm's reach. So somebody was getting that bear hug. It just happened to be me. That was a special moment, that one. So that one's, there's probably better ones, but mine's a homer moment. I got him a Pistons shirt tonight, and any reason to mention the bad boys or the Pistons in general, I'm taking it. So I'm going Vinnie Johnson, Game 5, 1990, 007.
The only reason why I didn't mention that was because I just didn't quite go that far back. But
yeah, I didn't know if there was rules, but Bill allows us to break rules anyway, so I was going to break the rules.
Hey, it doesn't matter. The cribbing after dark. You know? Don, you have anyone that maybe you got a favorite Spurs moment you want to ask? I mean,
don't say Robert
Say
Oriole
that because I do have a Spurs moment. But I don't know if it would qualify, so it wasn't in the finals. It was in the Western Conference Finals. Memorial Day, 1999, Sean Elliott puts away the Portland Trail Blazers.
Yes.
With all the championships Spurs have won, that's the one that kind of set the tone, that kind of started it all right there. And so that's my favorite Western Conference Finals moment. And it's probably the biggest shots in Spurs history, actually, if you think about it. But of the ones you gave me, I always liked the one where Steve Kerr drained it because we all knew that Jordan was going to take the shot, and Jordan dished it off, and Kerr.
Yeah.
That's
clean.
classic.
That was clean. Yeah.
Bill.
Okay, so I guess I'll go along with breaking whatever rules or whatever. So there's 3 seconds left on the clock. The score is died at 100. Dave DeBusschere sinks about a 12, 13 foot, banks it in a little jumper, and now puts the Knicks up by 2, 102 to 100. The Lakers are out of timeouts, and they got to get the inbounds pass in. Jerry West gets the ball, dribbles, maybe not even quite the half court. Realizes the clock's about to expire, knocks a 60 footer down. That in those days is just worth 2 points. They would have won the game in regulation nowadays.
Oh yeah.
But it pushed the game into overtime, and they are able to win one. And the Knicks unfortunately still end up winning 111-108 in overtime. But in that situation, pull that off. It would have been a game winner, obviously, with the 3-point shot being implemented. But I thought it was one of the most amazing. I mean, that's why they call him Mr. Clutch, to be able to do that in that situation.
Yeah, that's big time. Yeah.
I know we knock the refs a lot, Bill, but last night, one of the most obvious calls that you could ever make, Devin Booker, when he committed his 6th foul, which was not called.
And then later his 7th.
Right. And the referees say, well, we just didn't see it.
They were trying to help Booker reach a quadruple double, points, rebounds, steals, and fouls.
Good call. That's great.
The referees get paid just like everybody else. Players get fined. Why shouldn't referees get fined when they miss a call, Bill?
Well, one, because they would never go for it. No one would take the job. You would not be able to. You would have to go to robos. You'd have to literally have robots do it at that point. The first reason, and the realist reason. But the second reason is that if you do want the human element, then you have to allow the human element to be. I mean, that's unfortunately a factor. Unless you're willing to completely eliminate the human element, we're just going to have a system of, I don't know how it would work exactly, but a bunch of rules and algorithms you program into some sort of, like a little Roomba kind of thing that goes up and down the court. One runs this way along the baseline that way. You have two going on the inline that way, and they detect a rules infraction, and a little whistle sound goes off. I mean, unless you're going to do that, James, you're going to just put up with humans blowing calls. Those are your options. Skynet or what we have now.
Don, what's your thoughts on that? Everybody else is subject to some type of rules and some type of fines, players, ball. I mean, why shouldn't the refs be held accountable?
Well, I can play devil's advocate for both sides of that coin. First of all, if you find a ref for every bad call they blow, there's gonna be a lot of poor people in the striped jerseys. That's just the way it goes. On the other hand, as a fan, you do want them to be accountable. Like recent history, the ref in that Saints game a couple years ago, the blown interception. I mean, that was just how do you miss that? I think that's where you might want to bring in the instant replay to overrule that stuff, but it's kind of too late now for the NBA. But I'm really not sold on it either way. I don't want to be one of these people be in the middle of the road, but I can see both sides. But yeah, that was pretty damn obvious that they blew it.
Demetrius, I'm gonna get your final thoughts on that. I mean, people have had assault charges that haven't had as much contact as Booker had. What's your thoughts?
So I think I'm gonna emphatically go no. I believe in the human error. I think it adds something to the game, but more importantly, Bill brought up the real reason. The referees have a union. It'll never fly. They'll never bargain that. That just will never happen. But I think you have players flopping. You have guys faking stuff. That's such a challenging job. And you guys can disagree with me. I think they do a phenomenal job across all sports. 85, 90% of calls they get right. We just judge them by the exception, not the rule. We don't talk about games where they don't mess up. We only talk about them when they make mistakes. And that's kind of inherent in that job. I think that to me, there's like three categories. There's just sometimes they just miss it. They just miss it. That's it. Sometimes it's an angle. They're in the wrong position. But we don't find players for going 0 for 5. We don't find players for turnovers and making mistakes. We don't find players for losses. That's the real analogy. This is just a human being doing their job to an ability, and if we're going to pursue perfection, we're going to miss out on greatness. I think officials across almost every sport do a great job. Not just a good job, a great job. I think they get more than 90% of calls right. We, as fans, the media, and certainly players and coaches, we only talk about them when they mess up. So the perception is that they do the job poorly, when in reality it's the exact opposite. Referees in that league and most leagues, professional referees, do that, and it's such a hard job. I tried to officiate a softball game once, and it was bananas. They were all over me, and I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not built for this." It's an incredibly hard job, and people are all over you. And like I said, you got players flopping, trying to make your job harder. They're literally trying to make your job harder by flopping and nonsense. So yeah, I'm a refs guy. Again, practically it can never happen because they have a union and they're never going to bargain that. You would have to go to the Bill Carroll Skynet system because there's just no human being's going to do it. And I just think they do a really good job, and we only talk about them when they mess up.
Right. I mean, to continue the analogy, the only athletes in sports that we have a similar sort of relationship with in terms of freaking out when a point every touchdown's missed, right? Because we're used to them hitting it all the time.
Exactly.
And when one is missed, we lose our minds.
Yep.
And in fact, that's the only probably thing where you find 90-something% success rate amongst athletes.
Yep.
We still get mad when they miss the ones they miss, right?
Yeah.
That's the only. Everybody else in baseball, if you hit the ball 1/3 of the time, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Right? If you are able to knock down 3-pointers 4 out of 10 times, you're headed to
40%, you make millions, man.
So we don't accept from refs. The only people who are in this sort of a similar boat are, like I said, PAT, right? If you miss 1 out of 10, we're still pissed off.
Yeah.
But other than that, everyone else is to a much lower standard in sports.
Possibly the hockey goalie. Hockey goalie can turn away, 30 shots and give up 2 and lose a game. But he's absolutely right. The standard is ridiculous for refs.
Demetrius, there was somebody on this program last week that said, I don't want to hear about Chris Paul's legacy. Oh man, I think we had a 15-minute dissertation on Chris Paul and his legacy and all that, But I looked at Chris Paul these last 2 games. So how did you defend Santa Paul this week?
Yeah, that was Don Hayes talking all that Chris Paul nonsense last week. And I'm gonna.
Hey, I wasn't here last week.
I'm kidding.
I was fishing.
Yeah, I'm kidding. So one game certainly isn't going to change my perspective on Chris Paul. I think it's the same. I think he had a bad game last night. And you know who's the first person who said that?
I said 2.
2 bad games?
Yeah, 2. They lost the last. They lost the last 2.
Well, I don't know that they. I think honestly, I will say they lost last night because of Chris Paul. I think Game 4 was a team loss. I don't even think Game 4 was a loss. I think Milwaukee won Game 4. Milwaukee won Game 4. They outplayed it. Chris Paul was a direct contributor to them losing last night. I'm sorry, he was, and he was the first person to say that. He said it in the press conference, which I give him credit for. But his career has too many data points for me. We're talking about cementing legacy, and I'm going to repeat Don's word. That cement's already dry. Chris Paul's going to moonwalk into the Hall of Fame exactly 5 years after he retires, with no questions. Now, last night, that loss was on him. And I think he is the leader that I proclaim him to be, because he got this Phoenix team to the finals with a real chance to win the whole thing. No matter what happens, right? Getting them this far was enough. Battling what he battled, the stupid COVID decisions or injuries or whatever, he got this Phoenix team of young upstarts. I don't like that word, but I think it's kind of, without him, they're not here. That's what I'll say. Without Chris Paul, they're not here. Forget about a chance to win. They're not here. So his legacy is in dried cement, like Don Hayes mentioned earlier. He's moonwalking into the Hall of Fame immediately. And I have no, I mean, last night was a bad game. Yeah, he played horribly in Game 4. He made really, really bad mistakes at the worst time. And that game was still close, still winnable. His turnovers allowed Milwaukee to pull away. And he was the first person to own it. And oh, by the way, if we were doing the Sports Crib after Game 5 in a couple of days, I don't know that we're having the same conversation. And trust me, I'll be back in a week, and I'm gonna bring it up. So I'm still a CP3 guy. He's one of the few non-Pistons I like in that league. So
I'm gonna see, because if there's a Game 6, it might be on a night.
We'll be watching.
Night.
We'll be doing a bunch of this, right? I'll be like this. I'll do the whole podcast like this. Yeah, that's where the TV is. So, yep.
Don,
your thoughts on Chris Paul in the last 2 games?
Well, he was a little bit off, and like Demetrius said, he even he owned up to it, and I respect that. But as long as he can keep it together, and Devin Booker can put up those 50-point games, I think Phoenix will be fine. They just have to. They're in the home stretch. They need to, put the pedal to the metal and make things happen. As much as I do like Milwaukee, but I'm pulling for Phoenix because I do want CP3 to get that ring, and I think Booker is going to be the next Curry. He's still fresh, he's still young, and the kid's a gamer. So let's see what Phoenix can do.
Bill, everybody seems to be pulling for Phoenix, of course. Devin Booker, he makes his big comeback game, I guess you want to call it. He had 10 points the last game. This game, he goes off of 40 plus. This game, CP3 has 10 points. So I'm going to go back to the question that I asked a couple of weeks ago, Bill. Does CP3 have to score 30 or more points in order for the Suns to win?
Well, the same answer. They better not. That's not what his game is built around. That's like if you asking me, let's talk about, say, the 1959 Green Bay Packers. Is Bart starting to throw?
Well, wait a minute. Hold on, Bill. Let's talk facts. The 2 games that he scored 30 or more, they won. The 2 games he scored under 30, they lost.
Right. But correlation is not causation, right?
Okay.
Just, since we're talking facts.
See, I knew you wore that tie tonight for a reason. Okay.
I mean, James, if you show up, you see a pile of garbage with flies flying around it, you say, I can't believe these flies brought all this garbage here. Just because you find 2 things in relationship doesn't mean that one caused the other, James. So that team is not built in such a way that he needs to score 30 points for them to win. Did he score 30 points in the games they won? Yes, but there's also games where the team played well and he played well. That's why they won. Not specifically because there are other people on the team who could score, right? That's not their issue. Their issue is what they need from him is that calm hand on the till, leadership, getting people in the right position, moving people in the right place, keeping people focused when it gets tough and gets tight and people start to pucker, right? And in the games that they've lost, particularly obviously the one that we all just talked about, he puckered, right? He tightened up. So when the person you're counting on to steady you is unsteadied, he could have scored 40 points that night, but if he made those same bonehead mistakes, he would have still lost.
Exactly.
So once again, as I just said, correlation is not causation. So it's nice that he scored a bunch of points in the games they won, but they won those games because the team played extremely well. And once again, as I'm sure you all remember, before the season began, I picked the Bucks to win it all. Now, I might be wrong. They might not win it all, but I still think that this is a team, and I know everyone loves the Suns and blah, blah, blah. But the way that those 2 teams are constructed, there's a little more margin for error, frankly, for the Bucks. They can get poor play from an important player and survive it a little more easily. And that's one reason why I picked them before the season began to win it all, and why I'm still sticking with them despite getting off to obviously a very, very poor start. I truly believe that they have some problems that are almost unsolvable or insoluble for the Suns if their best players play well. And obviously the Suns have that dude in Devin Booker. So both teams have the ability to take anybody out. But I just wonder, the whole thing that scared me about the Bucks was their second unit, right? Their glue guys, their bench guys. But if those guys play well, I like the Suns. I like the Bucks to win it all. And of course, if their bench doesn't play well, that gives the Suns really good, because the Suns bench is a little more consistent, right? A little more. You kind of know what you're going to get more often than not from their guys. While it seems to me throughout the season and even the series that the Bucks bench is a little more of a roller coaster.
Since you're a Bucks fan, Bill, and you're sticking with the Bucks,
I wouldn't say all that. I'm not a Bucks fan. I'm an analyst who looked at the way the team is built and thought they'd win it all.
Okay, then do you think that Chris Middleton is Giannis's Scottie Pippen?
No. And Middleton's a really good player, but I think the kids like to say, put some respect on Scottie Pippen's name. Middleton is a very good player, but forgetting just how good Scottie Pippen was, if we're making statements like that. Chris Middleton is a player who, at his very best, if everything sort of works out and he's playing at his best, is probably a little closer to somebody like, I don't know, Ron Harper. You know what I mean? I don't think Scotty's quite what he can be.
Ron Harper's not a bad
Ron Harper's a good player. That's the point I'm making. Like, there's a lot of great players, even before you get to a guy like Scotty. There's a lot of guys that you still have between Middleton and Scotty. There's a lot of great players between the two if you're stacking them or putting them in tiers.
Don, on a team where Giannis is the man, and there's no getting around that. So would you call him more? Well, we already said that Scotty was Robin. So what's your analogy there? Who do you think Chris Middleton more resembles?
Well,
his role, that is.
I'm not going to put him in that Scottie Pippen role. And the only thing I can really think of is, going back to my Spurs. I guess I could compare him to like maybe like a Bob Morey type for Spurs a few years ago. Solid player, and is a key ingredient. You want him on your team, but to put him in the Pippen level, I don't know. That might be stretching it.
How many rings does Ori have, Bob?
Well, he has a lot more than Middleton.
Scottie Pippen. He has a lot more than Scottie Pippen too.
Yeah, he's a lot more than Middleton too. But I'm just saying, he's a key contributor. He like I said, he puts up his numbers, but I just don't see him at that level. And that's not saying. I mean, I won't take anything away from him, but I mean, if people want to call him the Pippen type, that's fine. I mean, why not just call him Ginobili too? I don't know, but
Ginobili's closer to me than Pippen in my mind.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so would you give him a Ginobili type role, Don?
More so than Pippen. More so than Pippen.
Okay. Demetrius, I'm going to give you the final thought on this, because the reason why I asked this question is number one, I don't remember Scotty dropping 40, if ever. Number two,
I got it, Bill.
Okay.
Okay. And also the reason why I'm saying Scotty is I'm talking about his role. As far as I'm not saying that he is Scottie Pippen, but what I'm saying is that if he doesn't pick up the slack for Giannis, there's nobody else. Right. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah. So I think that one, you owe Scottie Pippen an apology, and you can do that later on your own. Okay. I read your question more like you meant it. I see why the guys read it the way they read it. I read it, I think, more from a tag team standpoint, right? Let's make no mistake. Chris Middleton would not be allowed to carry Scotty's luggage at the airport.
No.
That is not a shot at Chris Middleton. I'm saying, as painful as it is for me as a Detroit Piston lifelong fan, Scottie Pippen is one of the greatest players ever played this game. Top 50 for sure, maybe top 30, just depending on how you want to parse guys out. When top you 25. Think about his size, what he was able to do at his size. He's the dude where you hear people say he can guard all 5 positions. Most of the time, that's bullshit. Scottie Pippen could guard all 5 spots. He was that good. And I hate to say it because he cost my team champion. They don't win 6 rings without Scotty. I'm not talking about the other guy. I don't mention his name. I don't say that dude's name. I'm a Piston fan. They don't win 6 rings without Scottie Pippen. Now, could he have gone to another team and been Batman? Maybe. It didn't work out in Houston. Maybe. I don't know. But that would be a question more of mental makeup. Did he have the killer instinct to be a Batman? I know that in the scenario you're laying out, the Batman-Robin concept, he's the greatest Robin of all time. He's the greatest Robin of all time. There isn't another Robin close. That's how I feel about it. So that was the flaw in the question, and I think the guys locked in on. From a concept standpoint, I absolutely agree with you. I think the most important player in this series is Chris Middleton. I believe that if Chris Middleton does what he does in Game 4, this is over. This is over because they figured out Drew Holiday can play Devin Booker defensively. They figured that out late in Game 2. That's the whole key that history will tell you. When they got Drew Holiday to lock in on Booker and CP3, like, and Booker's still putting up numbers, that's when Milwaukee turned the corner. I don't think it matters where the games are. The best player on the floor is still Giannis, as much as I love Booker. And the most important player on the floor is Chris Middleton. If he plays like Chris Middleton in Game 4, Milwaukee wins this series. So the spirit of your question, I think I agree with you. The problem you had was you mentioned Scottie Pippen, right? because he gets a bad rap. I don't like defending him because I'm a Piston fan. But in this concept, he's the greatest Robin ever, and there isn't anybody close. And it was only because he played with likely the greatest Batman ever that he was even Robin. On any other team, he's probably Batman. Good or bad, he's probably Batman on any other team with any other player. He was that good. He was. I go back to Bill. You got to put respect on Scottie Pippen's name. We got it, man. He was ridiculous.
Well, I would never put. I would never say that Chris Middleton, is going to be have Scottie Pippen's career. But
I didn't think you were. Yeah, I didn't think you were.
But in the concept of that particular team's makeup, the Bucks' makeup, as you said, it's kind of like as Chris Middleton goes, it's kind of like the same way Giannis goes. Giannis can score 30-some points, but if Chris Middleton doesn't, score at least 20, then we got to talk.
There are two Batman and Robin, by the way, Giannis and Middleton.
Yeah. If there was one, but Chris Middleton would not be a Batman on any team that he goes to. I don't think.
And unfairness is really that we call Scottie Robin.
Yeah, right. Is that there are a lot of teams that in the NBA, like I said, if Scottie was on the roster, he would be there unquestioned, and they would build everything around him. And I don't think there's many teams in the NBA that if they had Chris Middleton, they would build everything around him. Even bad teams, I don't think that's how they would react to having him.
Yeah. And I think the real thing is like using the Batman and Robin comparison is not fair to the Bulls. They had a Michael Keaton Batman and a Ben Affleck Batman. they had two Batmans is what they did.
Nicely done, sir.
That's probably how you did it.
So staying with you, Demetrius, Shannon gave the block, Giannis, of last night. He gave it a 10. Chris Broussard, he gave it a 9. Skip Bayless said it was obvious, and he gave it a 4. What's your ranking?
I want to do a Crib and After Dark one day on Skip Bayless, but not tonight. So I will say it's an 8.5 because the benchmarks to me, there's two of them. There's obviously LeBron. LeBron's block, though, came in a tie game, and it was the play of the game for sure. But that game was still up for grabs. The real benchmark, and the only reason, so I give LeBron's block a 9.5. That was utterly ridiculous. But, of course, me being a homer, game 2 of the 2004 Eastern Conference Finals, Tayshaun Prince chased down Reggie Miller. And if you haven't seen it, look it up. It's a legitimate 8.5. The only reason it's not a 9 is because it was in the conference finals and not the actual finals. So I go LeBron's a 9.5, Tayshaun's a 9. This is an 8.5 because that's recognition in terms of where you're at on the floor. That is reaction. He wasn't even on the ball. He saw the pass go up and made an incredible athletic play. And then he executed it perfectly without committing a foul. Although the rest probably wouldn't have called it anyway. Go back to Devin Booker thing. But it was an incredible play. Tayshaun and LeBron ran the length of the court. So I hold them at a little higher standard. And LeBron is slightly higher because that was but Tayshaun and LeBron both ended up winning championships there. It's yet to be determined how Giannis's block impacts the series. So in hindsight, I know that both those teams ended up winning those series, and those blocks were huge plays. I give it a legitimate 8.5 because it was a great play. And I challenge you to name me 2 other guys who have the recognition skill, the athletic ability, the height, the reaction time to make the play. Everybody can't make that play. And the same thing can be said about LeBron and Tayshaun. Running the floor, getting up, timing. There was so much involved. That was a great play. And I only give it an 8.5 because I benchmark it against two other blocks that I think were even more incredible.
Don, what's your ranking?
Very solid 9. The reason I'm not giving it a 10 is I gave LeBron the 10, but I give it a 9.9. And by the way, Skip Bayless,
Right.
that's a waste.
Right. We're after dark, and I almost said it, but I'm glad you said it.
I'm ashamed he's from Texas, by the way.
But at least you have Rick Bayless to balance it out.
There you go.
I'll definitely eat some Rick Bayless barbecue, definitely.
Yeah, Rick is a phenomenal Mexican cook. I love. I've tried some of his recipes even when I was in culinary school. Yeah, Rick is the man when it comes to turning the stove on. Bill, your thoughts? How do you rank them?
It's one of the greatest blocks I've ever seen. Maybe not the greatest, but it's in the fight. It's on, it's on the. It might not have won the gold, but it's on the podium. It got bronze. I mean, it was a great play for all the reasons. Once again, I get to follow Demetrius here, but for all the reasons he mentioned, there's a handful of people who ever lived on this planet who could have made that play. Yeah. It's a short list, right? Wilt in his prime, maybe. I mean,
it's a short list.
I mean, the list is very, very short.
Bill Russell.
Right, Russell. That's probably the list. We're probably done.
Yeah,
probably 3 human beings ever could have made that play. And Giannis is one of the 3. So that tells you, a lot of what that's the answer to a lot of things you just asked. And that's probably the player whose game his most resembles is Bill Russell's.
Yeah.
And for good things, that's kind of a good thing in some ways, but also, I mean, Russ was a decent offensive player, but Russ didn't have to concentrate on offense because he never had to. I mean, at times he would lead the team in scoring, but that wasn't really what his primary concern was.
Right.
Giannis, unfortunately, has to often lead his team in scoring. And his offensive game is still vestigial and underdeveloped, but he's such an amazing athlete, and he has just boundless talent. I'm excited every time I watch him play, and then sometimes disappointed every time I watch him play, sometimes simultaneously. But yeah, I mean, anything less than a 9, you're just being, I don't know,
silly,
contrarian, whatever.
Right.
So, I mean, 9.75, I guess. I mean, it's above 9.5 for me, not quite a 10.
All right. Well, hey, guys, once again, great Thursday, great conversation. I'm going to do things a little different this time. I'm going to start with Bill. Bill, give us your final thoughts for the evening, my man.
Sure. Because of the way our show is scheduled, we didn't get to talk enough about Arthur Ashe, right? We didn't discuss him at all, did we?
No.
We did. So Arthur Ashe had a birthday a few days ago. Once again, a proud Virginian, a native of Richmond, went to Maggie Walker Armstrong. Maggie, was it Maggie? Yeah, Maggie Walker Armstrong High School, which gave us people like Willie Lanier and a bunch of others. I mean, it was the big black high school in Richmond, so lots of people came out of that high school. But Arthur Robert Ashe was a lot of the things we say about people like Jackie Robinson can be said about Arthur Ashe, and he didn't have a team around him to diffuse it. He plays a very solitary sport, and he was the most solitary athlete in a very solitary sport. Born on the 10th of July of 1943. He won 3 Grand Slam titles. He was the first black person ever who was assigned to a Davis Cup team. He won, he won a singles title at Wimbledon. He won a U.S. Open. He won at Australia. He was the world #1. Once again, obviously the first African American to be the world's #1. Won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Faced down, unfortunately, HIV/AIDS back when it was a death sentence. And the life that he led, and it was, to me, one of the most extraordinary lives one could ever lead. You think about someone born in America's South during World War II, whose mother dies very, very young. And like I said, it was a terrific all-around athlete. But his nicknames were like Skinny and Bones. And while all the kids around him were playing baseball and football and basketball, this kid, this little skinny black kid in the black half or whatever of Richmond, Virginia, I want to think of it, the black section of Richmond, Virginia. And he did play a little bit of basketball as well, but finds his way to, a black-only public playground called Brookfield Park and discovers tennis. And at 7 years of age, starts practicing on the courts. And a Virginia Union student who's a part-time tennis instructor named Ron Charity, a person whose name should be remembered to history, but really, frankly, has not been, who at that time was the best black tennis player in Richmond and one of the best black tennis players in the South, sees this little skinny kid. And so by the time he gets to Maggie L. Walker High School, Ron Charity brings him to the attention of Robert Walter Johnson, who's a doctor. But he's also the coach of Althea Gibson. And he founded and funded the junior development program of the ATA, the American Tennis Association. And he goes to his home in Lynchburg, Virginia, at 10 years old. And Johnson helps him, fine-tunes his game, talks to him about essentially what he's going to face, because he thinks he has a chance to be essentially the Jackie Robinson of tennis. And he tries to let this young man know, a 10-year-old, know what he's likely to face if he decides to walk this path. And he's told that you can never argue a call, right? All this, so it's very similar to the talk that Branch Rickey has with Jackie Robinson. But Jackie wasn't 10. Jackie was a grown-ass man who'd been in, had served in the U.S. Army, right? I mean, there's a couple of very important differences. Jackie was married with kids when they had to have the talk. This is a 10-year-old boy with glasses perched on his nose, being told that, you're going to break the color line, in essence, in men's tennis. So he plays in 1958 in the Maryland Boys Championship, which was his first integrated tennis competition. And he's great, right? He's not able to play for the state championship as a high school tennis player, or at least not against the best of the best who are all white because of segregation. So what ends up happening is he leaves and spends his last year of high school in St. Louis, which is not exactly the most racially progressive place in the world either, but they do allow interracial tennis competition. So he gets to play there. He starts to get a little bit physically stronger, practices at the National Guard Armory indoor courts, and eventually gets to play in what had been previously segregated interscholastic tournaments and wins it for his school. He first makes Sports Illustrated in their Faces in the Crowd section. He wins a national junior tennis title, gets a tennis scholarship to UCLA, where J.D. Morgan is the coach, who had also coached Pancho Gonzalez, who is Arthur Ashe's tennis idol, in part because he's a great serve and volley player, and in part because he's a racial minority himself. And he also was in the ROTC. Those who didn't already know that. So he gets his bachelor's degree, goes into the U.S. Army, completes basic training, commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Adjutant General Corps, and spends even a little bit of time at West Point. and he headed up the tennis program, was temporarily promoted to first lieutenant, discharged from the Army as a second lieutenant. So it was a brevet, what do you call it, promotion, temporary in nature. Served 2 years in total in the Army. And when he gets out, now he has, the biggest fight of his life because he has to change the world, right? He's this great tennis player who is black. And the tennis world is essentially all white. I mean, Althea Gibson's done what she's done on the women's side, but there's never been a male black tennis player who's made it to the top of his game. And he fights his way in, gets onto the U.S. Davis Cup team, eventually makes it to the U.S. Open, which in those days, he's playing as an amateur initially. So if you can't accept prize money, the game, everything's changed so much. So he's basically having to beg, for lack of a way of put it, to fund his career at this point until he turns pro. But he fights his way to winning, a second Grand Slam event at the Australian Open. He fights his way, of course. Also, he's one of the first players to refuse to play in tournaments where South African sponsored players or from the nation of South Africa are playing, which gets him criticized. And finally, he ends up reaching the final of the the Australian Open, lost to Ken Rosewall, but won the French Open doubles with Marty Rison. Eventually, he turns pro, which he would have done at, 15 or 16 nowadays. It's because the idea of being a pauper while you're one of the 4 or 5 best people in the world at your sport is unthinkable nowadays. But if you read his book about how he lived for the first several years of his career, it's mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing that when I say he had to beg, I'm not joking. Like, he's essentially kind of passing the hat until finally he turns pro to fund his career. But despite all of this, he's going back and giving clinics and increasing the exposure of the sport to young black players. He's finally wins Wimbledon at his 9th attempt at age 32 or just before his 32nd birthday, which doesn't seem that old now, but that was really old in tennis terms in those days. And he'd never beaten Jimmy Connors, ever. They'd played many, many times. He'd never beaten him once. In fact, Connors had never dropped a set to Ashe before the Wimbledon finals. So it's one of those amazing sort of Rocky stories on top of everything else that this guy he just couldn't beat to save his life. He finally beats him where? The biggest tournament in the world, in the finals. He had never taken a set from Connors before. So I obviously, I'm sorry. I'm very excited about this because I think at one point I think we understood how important Arthur Ashe was, and I think we've lost a little bit of that sense of how important a figure he was in America, not just in sports, but in America as a whole. And I want to remind people of how important Arthur Ashe was and what an amazing person he was. So yeah, that's my final thought.
Well, Don, your final thoughts for the evening.
All right. So my final thoughts is this. Earlier we talked about what's the girl's name?
Candace Parker.
Candace Parker. Yes. So I said I'd never watch girls' sports. That's really not true. I don't watch professional women's sports. I'll clarify that. But I watch Olympics. I watch figure skating, gymnastics, track and field, and anything involved University of Texas. In fact, in 1988, when I was a junior at UT, I attended every women's volleyball game. That should have won the national championship because the girl I was dating, her name is Annette Garza. She's a member of that team. So I just want to clarify that. I did watch girls athletics. I just don't watch professional girls athletics. because I think they should be in the kitchen making me a sandwich. So,
the views
Just
of Don
kidding.
Hayes do
Just
not reflect
kidding.
those of the sports group.
I did that just to get the reaction.
Oh, no,
but,
Wait. Now, first of all, you have to remember Don is from Texas, so
Don's on fire tonight. Don's on fire tonight.
Don, as usual, hey, let's see. Now, I was trying to think of something to go along with that, but Don,
There's nothing to go along with that.
Yeah, you left me.
We just leave that where it is.
Don dropped the mic on that. I don't even want to do final thoughts on that.
hey, little dash of misogyny. Okay, no more. Anyway, good to be with y'all guys tonight, and look forward to next week.
Absolutely.
Oh man, yeah. Don, you will definitely have to be in our conversation about the evolution of women's track uniforms at the University of Texas. So Demetrius.
So for me, I'm always looking for an opportunity to talk about Detroit, and if I can mix in race and important moments, I always try and do that. So 50 years ago, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game was held in Detroit. Think about the time, like 1971 in Detroit. You're still just a few years removed from some riots that really destroyed my city. Right? I mean, it was painful. It was painful. So 1971.
1967.
Exactly. So 1971 All-Star Game comes along, and so I think this game has somehow gotten lost in history, and I think it needs to be noted, right? And I had heard a lot about it from people I know and love who love baseball, and then I happened to read an article about it earlier this week. There were 25 eventual Hall of Famers in that game, right? The who's who is, it's tough to do. I'm going to do it because we got the time. We're early. This is only 2:20. We got plenty of time left. we got plenty of time left. The National League starting outfield was Willie Mays, Willie Stargell, and Hank Aaron. And get this. The backups, the reserves, Bobby Bonds, Lou Brock, and a dude named Roberto Clemente were the reserves for that All-Star team, right? Willie McCovey's on that team. Manny Sangui and Don Wilson. The people of color representation on this team was ridiculous. The AL had Rod Carew, Frank Robinson, Amos Otis, and Don Buford are reserves. They also had this reserve outfielder from the Oakland A's, and we haven't done it once in the whole podcast, Bill. So I'm going to do it 3 times here. Reginald Martinez Jackson is his name. Yep. And this game.
I mean, I did give you some Arthur Robert Asher.
You did. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You did. Reginald Martinez Jackson hit what is still widely considered the longest home run in history. I mean, I think people who were there have stretched this thing out to 800 feet by this point. The stories have got it hit a transformer at Tiger Stadium. That's the only thing that stopped it. So officially, it's measured at 539. I've heard reports that this thing was well over 600 feet. And if not for the transformer, this thing is somewhere in the city, in somebody's kitchen, through a window. It was, and you can go Google this thing. He just ripped it. And better than anything.
I've seen engineers do like dissertations with kinds of force, was it like a lift project and
exit velo, all that stuff.
All that, yeah.
It was a blast. And when you see it, watch how he just throws the bat down. There is a moment when you hit a baseball, and I've gotten to play a bit of baseball. When you hit it, you don't need to look. You know, your hands, your arms, everything in your body says, we got that one. I got that one. You don't even need to look. Reggie knew that thing was somewhere in downtown Detroit. He threw the bat down emphatically. You know, and there's a whole story about Sal Bando had messed with him and said, don't go strike out. Don't embarrass us. And he went 0-2. And then he's starting to worry about Sal Bando. He takes a ball wide. He's thinking about striking out. And then, bang, this thing happened. So it is an incredible, important moment for the city of Detroit. By all accounts, it was a really entertaining game. The who's who is remarkable. I just ran off the list. And for me, there's this secondary, almost never mentioned, but should be point for it for me. It's the first time 2 black pitchers started in an All-Star game.
There you go.
the big deal, right? Vida Rochelle Blue Jr. of the A's and Doc Phillip Ellis Jr. of the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yep.
So I could do a final thoughts on Doc Ellis. It's so worthwhile. But there's a sports documentary, and we talked a few weeks ago. I love sports documentaries. Go find the one about Doc Ellis. It is worth it. The word character doesn't even come close. Doc Ellis was a unique individual. But Doc Ellis and Vida Blue start this game. You've got the who's who of baseball in it, right? Reserves and starters. It was a big deal in the city of Detroit. It was a very, very important moment for the city. And I don't even mean the socioeconomics of bringing an all-star, because back then, I'm sure it helped. I'm sure it helped the economy. Not like it would now. Now you bring an all-star game in, you're bringing millions of dollars to a city's economy. But that the city at that time needed that. And by all accounts, it was one of the greatest all-star games ever. There were great performances. It was very, very, and you can actually like YouTube the whole game. Somebody's got the whole game posted. I watched quite a bit of it. But I think as a moment for the city of Detroit, it was fantastic. As a moment for African-American ball players, it was fantastic. And I think it should probably get a little more pub. And 50 years is a great benchmark to bring it up and note it. So that's something I wanted to bring up.
Hey guys, well, as usual, another fun Thursday in the bag.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to talking to everyone next week. And Don, hey, make sure you bring that Texas humor, and look, Don,
all emails should go to don.hayes at some email address.com. Good stuff, Don. I'm only joking. I thought it was great. It was very entertaining.
Oh man, hey, hey, Don and I, we come up in that age of, definite misogyny. So
I think he was mostly joking. I think he was mostly kidding. It's very funny.
I'm sure we were mostly joking, but hey, I do remember, very vividly, my 5th grade teacher telling me that a woman's place was in the home. So hey, now we're debating critical race theory.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, hey, on that note, let's make sure that we all have a great weekend, and
yes, sir.
Hey, watch some sports, and we'll see you next week right here on the Sports Script.
All right, guys. God bless.
Have a good one.
Take care.